Hi everyone, my name is Alan Miller. I do the Ghost Walks of LaFollette, and I'm here with the Volunteer Times. And my guest today is Martha LaFollette, the great-granddaughter of Grant LaFollette, correct?
Well, I'm the granddaughter.
Your granddaughter?
Yes.
There you go. I keep messing up. I've called her everything today. This is the granddaughter of Grant LaFollette. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever you wish to speak about.
Grant LaFollette came to this area with his brother Harvey, and they founded this town of LaFollette. And this is the 125th anniversary of the city.
That is correct.
And I had heard about this festival from some friends who were from LaFollette, and they sent me some material that showed a commemorative medal that had my great uncle on one side and the house my father grew up in on the other. So I contacted them and asked if I could buy a medal, and they invited me to come for the festival, which I have done, and I've been received so well and welcomed so much, and I've just had a great time. But
could you talk about your grandfather?
Yes.
What you remember of Grant and even Harvey, if you
Yes.
even have any recollections of
Yes.
what they were like growing up.
Well, my father was Grant's son, but he had moved out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, so we didn't get to Tennessee very often, or at least to East Tennessee. But I heard a lot of stories about his growing up here, and so to tell you a little bit about that, he was born in 1900, and he had been born in a hospital in Cincinnati because I don't think there was a hospital here yet, and they wanted
Right, there probably wasn't one here then.
something modern, I guess. But then immediately he came down here, and he spent his whole childhood in this house. And it was a household that encompassed two families because Grant, my grandfather, his older brother was Harvey. And Harvey had his own family, so they built the house that would have room for everybody. And my father had three sisters. They grew up in this house also. So
So at one time you had all of Grant's family here and Harvey's family here.
yes,
So you had Robert and his two sisters.
three sisters.
Three sisters.
Yeah.
So your father and your three aunts were here.
Right.
Your grandparents.
right.
And then your
My great uncle.
Right.
And his wife and son.
correct. And then house staff as well.
Right.
Coach staff, house staff, the whole nine
Right.
yards. So that was a lot of individuals. Of course, it's an amazing house, but that was a lot of individuals to grow up with.
Yeah, I think it was. The house had at least a third floor, as well as I think when you tour it, you can see two floors, but there's another one upstairs.
Correct.
So anyway, I didn't have much occasion to come to LaFollette. I lived mostly in, various parts of the country, but I ended up as a Spanish professor at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So I lived in Charlotte a long time, and now I live in Atlanta, where my son lives, and but didn't make it to LaFollette very often. And when I came this time, I brought a picture of Harvey that I have the original of, and I had made a copy for the city, and I hope to make a better copy later. But it shows Harvey when he was 18 years old. He was 22 years old, but he had gone to Paris as a very young man, about 18, I think, from Indiana, from his home in Indiana, on his own, and I don't believe he had any great financial backing to do it, but he was able to enroll in the Polytechnic Institute in Paris, and this portrait shows him standing by a small table, and it had some books that had textbooks of engineering and some tools of the engineer. And so then I found out that the painting was painted by a young man who was also from Indiana. So apparently they had gone to Paris Harvey was very young. He was in school, and he befriended this painter. And then I later came to find out that this painter had exhibited in the famous Paris salons, which it was very hard to exhibit in those, but I found that out. And as it turns out, he was only a few years older than Harvey, but he became ill and he went home to Indiana, where he died very young. I think he was about 32. So, and some people said he was an extremely promising painter and would have really done wonderful things. And it just shows, like, at the time, there were illnesses such as tuberculosis, and in the artists' quarters in Paris, it was like it was rampant.
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so this was, and so that painting is.
Do you have it on your phone? The photo of the
Oh, I
painting
do.
on your phone? Yeah.
Yes, I can show
Yeah,
you.
you can pull it up and we can zoom in there a little bit and get it for those at home. Apologies.
This is a picture of that portrait.
Thank you.
So these things have all been a part of my life. My father, I was born when he was 44, and he died when he was 75. But he was a very talented, colorful person, and so he was very proud of his family, and that's how I learned a lot about the family and about his early years. However, he was a bit of a renegade, I guess, because he went out to New Mexico. He didn't stay in Tennessee. He did go to law school at the University of Tennessee. He actually went to Vanderbilt one year, but apparently, like Harvey, he had finished high school very young, and he had taken the money he needed for the whole year, and he had a big heart, and he loaned it to someone, and they didn't repay him. And so he was in the doghouse, and he decided to go travel out west and be a hobo. So then later he came back and he finished his education at the University of Tennessee, and he became a lawyer in Albuquerque, specializing in a lot of the Spanish-speaking people there. And after he retired, he became the director of legal aid, which helps poor people. And in fact, he was supposed to funnel cases to other lawyers, that's what's his function. But if it was a small matter, he did it himself. Well, after he died, 10 years after he died, the Albuquerque Bar Association named an annual pro bono award after him.
Oh, wow.
So that's part of, I know it's my father, but it is part of the heritage of the family.
It definitely is. So there's the Robert LaFollette pro bono.
Right, and so the family, I think, had a lot of very energetic and kind of visionary people. My father was a visionary also in many ways. Like, I remember in the energy crisis in the 70s, I found some drawings of windmill-powered cars he was trying to invent. So he was definitely ahead of his time. And another thing about Harvey is I had heard he had one of the largest personal libraries in Tennessee or anywhere near here. And a lot of the books came to our house from where they ended up after they had died. And I guess that partly contributed to my growing up too, because I even still have some of the books. I have things like the Legal Code of France in French in leather-bound volumes. Just like, he was just a very intelligent man, I think, and very curious. And
Well, according to reports, he could have had as many as 5,000 volumes in the house at one time.
And yes, I know we had, at our house, we probably had about maybe 400, but we were way out in New Mexico. And then at my cousin's house in Memphis, they had a whole basement full. And I wish we had some still, but
Now, that's impressive. That we've always heard that the beautiful library here was packed full of books, and it was one of the most impressive libraries in the region.
Right. And I'll tell this little story about Harvey too. I never knew him personally, but my father talked about him so much, and we had a portrait of him, so we always referred to him as Uncle Harvey, and we called the painting Uncle Harvey. Like, be careful and don't bump Uncle Harvey's picture. But he when he was in Europe, he went to different countries and stayed for a while, and I heard that he traveled around on foot basically, or staying with people out in the rural areas to learn the languages, and so he spoke 5 languages. Well, among our family papers, I found a little scrap, and it was somebody writing about how they would teach a foreign language. And apparently, when he came home from Europe, he applied for teaching jobs, and he had sketched out his method of teaching a foreign language. And I happened to have been a language teacher, and I found his methods to be very much in line with what I had always been told to do. So that was interesting. Anyway, those are some of the recollections I have. Nothing really. There's a lot of detail that I don't know about.
Right.
But
all your insights that you gave us today add wonderful to the story of the LaFollettes, because as we discussed earlier, that Grant and Harvey, they live in infamy, I guess, within the institution of LaFollette, because we do have their home. There are still individuals here who were raised, and they have stories of the LaFollette. So it was wonderful for you to travel all the way from Georgia to attend our 125th anniversary. We greatly appreciate it, and once again, thank you for all of your stories and being just a wonderful person, first of all.
Oh, thank you.
And putting up with everyone just pawing all over you all day long.
Well, it was really one of the most fun days, and the only time in my life I've really felt like a celebrity. So I really have so many thanks to say to the people of LaFollette.
Well, it's not every day that we get one of the founding fathers' grandchild. So also Grant's house still stands. It's behind this house up the street. So if you wish to, the first house that we've always been told that he built is up on the other street. So
really? Mm-hmm. You mean that was built while they built this one, supposedly?
From what we understand, Grant lived in a house behind this house before he moved into this one.
Well, gosh, I'm going to have to come back because there's just too much to see.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And listeners, thank you for tuning in, and have a good day.